Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about the second episode of The Ones Who Lived titled Gone. I'm going to talk about the two main storylines of this episode. So Michonne making her way to Rick, Michonne reuniting with Rick, and then I'll sprinkle a little bit of Jadis at the end because unfortunately she's a part of the story. So Michonne's group that she traveled with, very high level. I am so happy that Michonne ran into a group that was good, treated her well. She had friendship and companionship throughout the entire journey. Of course, she lost some people along the way, but I'm just very happy that she found people who weren't trying to kill her, trying to eat her, or do bad things to her. I'm glad that it was that group. So let's talk about the couple. So the couple, Aiden and Bailey, I believe their names are. We met them in season 10, and if I'm being honest, they gave me red shirt vibes from since back in season 10, episode 14, I think it was. So I wasn't surprised that they died. Yeah. Nat was such a great addition. I know the actor Matt Jeffers, I believe his name is. He was on New Amsterdam before, so I've seen his work before. And I just loved how spirited his character was. Like his introduction, he just like flew into the room and he had so much passion. And he was just a sweetheart, very to the point, but very empathetic. And such a great support to Michonne from a friendship perspective, obviously from a resource perspective, from an intel perspective. And he was just so great. What I liked about going back to Aiden and Bailey, you know, again, having companionship, having Michonne being able to have a little laugh with them, her bonding with the girlfriend about, you know, being pregnant and having children in the apocalypse and so on. It was kind of sad though towards the end. Of course, the chlorine gas situation was just so devastating, and seeing them breathing heavy, having blood come out of their noses and mouth, and the woman having her mouth foaming at the mouth towards the end when she was dying. It was just so devastating to see. And one of her last words were to Michonne were, you know, go home, give up, go back to your babies, which of course Michonne wants to do, but she's on a mission and she feels kind of torn, and it was just pretty heart-wrenching. And then the boyfriend died afterwards as well. And then she and Nat just had such a beautiful friendship, right? And it appeared as though they were in that mall or that store at least for maybe about a year. Many seasons had passed, so 9 months, maybe a year. And seeing Michonne weak, Michonne, obviously, she's so fit and she's so strong, and seeing her struggle just to do basic push-ups was just not the way we're used to seeing her, right? And so with time, she got stronger and they were able to go out. It was really devastating when Michonne went to the shipyard and she saw that the ship was completely dilapidated, uninhabitable, so obviously nobody was on there. And then seeing all the charred piles of bodies and her looking to see if one of them happened to be Rick's body, it was just so heart-wrenching because she was really, really trying, and obviously she wasn't able to find him. And then that nighttime when she and Nat are at the fire and she just starts to break down, we're not used to seeing Michonne break down like that. And her saying, like, the answer is right in front of me. He would have come home if he was alive. And her essentially giving up, finding him at that point to go back to her children. It was very sad to see. Going to Nat's last scene now, where he and Michonne are in the field and they see the CRM helicopter, and Nat shoots it with the rocket. And he thought the first shot was ineffective because it didn't do anything to the actual helicopter, but that's the one that hit Okafor in the chest, so it was very effective in that regard because that man exploded. And of course the subsequent shots brought the helicopter down. And so it was almost as if Nat like literally ushered Michonne into Rick, because going to his death scene, you know, he died 2 seconds after Rick and Michonne reunited. And it was very sad. Of course, Michonne was very distraught when he died. It was very shocking. And he was a great character. Of course, we know this is the Rick and Michonne show, and him joining CRM would be very unlikely. So it's not all too surprising that he didn't make it, but he was a really great character. And again, that whole crew, it was just so nice that Michonne had all that support and love, or, you know, good friendship with these people throughout that time. going to the Rick and Michonne reunion scene, I should admit that I was spoiled. I saw this scene on Twitter maybe Monday or Tuesday after the first episode aired. It was in my For You feed, my X For You feed. So if you're on there, just be leery because I know spoilers were running rampant on there. Anyway, so we leave off basically at the same point where they're looking at each other and they're so shocked to see each other. And then Rick gets up, walks over to Michonne. Michonne's eyes are filled with tears. Rick's crying, and they hug. Michonne says, "I found you," which was so sweet because going back to Rick's last episode on the main show, right before he blew up the bridge, he said he found his family, and now Michonne is finding him again. It was just very loving. Oh, it was emotional. Even though I was spoiled, it was emotional seeing it on the air on Sunday night. And the first thing, very telling of Rick's mind space right now, he asked her about Judith, but not just asking her, like, how's she doing? He asked if she was alive, which was kind of sad. And I don't think Michonne picked up on that. But she said, yeah, she's okay. And then he said, I'm not with them, like with CRM. And Michonne says, I know. So obviously he's physically with them. He was in their helicopter. But we know that he means, like, he's not a part of that group. Even though technically he just said he bought into it. But, he was just rationalizing things. We know Rick. He really wasn't indoctrinated into the CRM. He just kind of resigned to it. But now that Okafor's dead, Michonne is here. No, he's not part of CRM, not in that way. And it was, again, so lovely. They have a nice passionate kiss. They hug again. They're crying again. And then things get a little bit weird, at least from Michonne's perspective. So Rick hears the helicopters in the background, and he knows he called for backup, so these people are coming. And so he said, okay, they're coming. And Michonne says, okay, let's just go. And he says, no, we can't. They're coming. They're going to have to take you. When they take you, don't show them who you are. And she's like, what do you mean not show them who I am? And he says that you're a leader, that you're strong. Trust me, I will get you when it's time. I promise you we're going to make it out of there. And she looks at him like, what are you talking about? But then she's excited again that she found him. And she hugs him again like, oh my gosh, I found you. And then that's the point where Nat is there, and then he gets shot, right? And then she goes over to him. Rick kills the guy who shot him. And then Rick plants her katana in his hand to look like he's the one who killed these other guys, of course, because he doesn't want to exonerate himself or Michonne. And then when he asked her all these questions, right? Like, do you have anything that will identify Alexandria or anything that might, link the two of them together? And she says all the things that she has. And he says, give them to me. I'll carry them. So he's like rattling off all these different directions to her. And you can see the look on her face. She's like, okay, like, sure, I guess. Like, she's really kind of confused because she doesn't know what this operation is really about. And the point where he says, you're going to have to put your hands up, and I'm going to have to point my gun at you, right? And again, more confusion. I know she trusts him, but it's a lot to take in, like 2 seconds after you see like the husband that you thought was dead for 8 years. So it's a lot, but again, she trusts him, and you see that he doesn't have his hand on the trigger, obviously. And it's just so Walking Dead and so funny that when he's about to put the gun to her head, he yells, I love you, right? Because the rules in The Walking Dead in this world are just so different from our world, obviously, and for good reason, thankfully. And then when the helicopter comes and she has a big smile, she has her hands up, and she has a big, elated, content smile on her face. It was really interesting. I felt very happy for her and for them at that point. We see Michonne in her intake interview where she's talking to a panel of different CRM folk, and she's being recorded. And we can clearly see she's kind of adopted this more meek persona. Her name is Dana, which I think is a play on Denai's name. I have no idea because I couldn't think of another Dana in the Walking Dead universe. And she pulls on different aspects of the people that she's met, right? So she mentioned she's from Georgia, which she was from Georgia, not anymore. She mentions that her sister's name was Elle, and I think Elle is the name of the lady who was part of that caravan. She mentioned she had a bow staff, so she pulled some Morgan, and a few other different things. My only thing is that I really hope she remembers all those details, because if she gets interviewed again and she's not consistent, then things might not go so well. Later on, we get the scene of where Michonne's walking around the yard. I don't really know what they call that in the army, but let's just call it the yard, right? And I was very interested to see how freely she was able to walk around, considering she'd just been there for maybe a day or two, right? And the CRM soldiers and the consignees just walked around like there was no pecking order. I have no idea. I thought that was interesting that she was able to walk around. And then when Rick pulls her aside and they go into the room or the warehouse or whatever, and it was cute because they had a little like make-out session, of course, and then they had a little conversation. And I definitely think they're going to have a lot more conversations very soon, because the first thing she noticed was the hand. And he mentioned this happened a long time ago on one of the last attempts that I had at escaping. So she turns up her face a little bit as to say, like, you haven't tried to leave lately? And you can see he kind of pulls back. He's like, oh, I was trapped, but now you're here and we're going to get out of here together, right? So she's like, he hasn't even been trying at all? And then I could see when he asked again about Judith, this time not if she was alive, but how she was doing. And she said she was doing well, and then she kind of trailed off. And he's like, well, what's going on? And I'm pretty sure she was thinking of RJ. But in that moment, in like a little clandestine meeting that lasted 3 minutes, to bring up the fact that he has a son that he didn't know existed and is now 7 or 8 years old, I think it would have been too much in that moment to tell him about that. So I'm pretty sure that's what was on her mind. And then you see she has more questions about this whole operation, right? And so he mentions about if he sends her a note, she would have to read it and destroy it right away. And then she mentions about how, the CRM's out there killing people. Are you killing people too on your helicopter runs? And he says, no. There's another group who wears red. They come back bloody. Nobody really knows what they're doing, but like in his heart of hearts, he has a pretty good idea that they're killing people. And she asks him if they can stop, and he just realistically says no. And then you see her look at him like, can we try? And he says, we would never get away. And you can see some disappointment in her eyes. And what I thought back to was their dynamic during the whole season 7 Negan subjugations period, where there was an episode, I think it was like the 4th episode, where Rick is pretty down and out. He's following Negan's rules. He doesn't want to stir the pot. And Michonne really wants to fight. And there's the opening scene where they're sleeping. They're in bed. She's waking up early, probably stressed out. And she looks over to the other side of the bed. Rick's on like the complete opposite side. And he's sleeping like a baby. And she looks over at him and she gives him like a scowl. And she looks so pissed off with him. And so I kind of feel that she feels that way, at least at this moment, that he's not trying hard enough. And again, that's because she doesn't really understand the whole scope of the CRM as yet, because she just got there, right? And one thing I would say about Rick and Michonne is that the reason why they work so well as co-leaders and why they work so well as a couple is because they are a lot alike. And obviously they have a lot of positives, but they do kind of have a negative in that sometimes they have a little too much hubris, right? They think they can do anything because they are so strong, and they are, but they can't do everything. And sometimes they overestimate themselves, like in particular when I think about the end of season 8, beginning of season 9, where in the war, they eventually decide, Rick decides he's not going to execute Negan, which was the plan the entire time. And Maggie's upset, and Michonne is physically holding Maggie back when she tries to get at Negan. And then subsequently, the setup they had with everyone kind of taking the sanctuary in, and they posted Daryl at the site to watch over them, and Daryl's not a leader, and Daryl hates them. And all of these different things, and all the discontent that created and tension, which ultimately kind of in a way led to Rick's death, right? Because the whole situation with all the upset at the bridge and the savior's not working very well with others and everything. And then, yeah, and then Rick and Daryl being upset with each other, Maggie and Michonne being upset with each other. So sometimes I think they need to like pull back a little bit. And I think Rick has pulled back, and I think for good reason. Michonne, again, she doesn't see everything. Again, she is new to this, so she doesn't know. So I think that at the end of things, where she walks around the yards and she gets a high vantage point and she sees just how vast this operation is, I think that she might have two things on her mind. One, she wants to mess that entire thing up, and she has Nat's lighter. But also I think she sees the gravity of just how big and vast this entire operation is. And then the last part, our girl Jadis, of course, who found herself into Rick's apartment. She has a master key, and she just like got in there. I knew she was coming. I can't stand Jadis, but Pollyanna McIntosh, like, she really like ate up that scene. She was great. And of course, Jadis wouldn't be Jadis if she wasn't flirting with Rick. Oh, it's been a long time. You look good. Of course, she would say something like that. And so I'm really curious to know what their long-standing relationship is, or like what their arrangement is. And her saying that, yeah, you know, it's so interesting that she showed up. Of course, she'd be able to find you. But if you two think you're going to get away from here, you have another thing coming. I will go to Alexandria. I know Alexandria. I will kill people that I like there because you can't get away. And Rick has nothing to say. He's just really, taken aback by this whole situation. So I think Jadis is definitely going to be a thorn in their side. So we'll see how things go. So again, those are my takeaways from this episode. Another great episode. I'm really, really loving this series. I think everything is amazing. People look amazing. The visuals look amazing. The storyline is going by quickly at a fast pace, which I really appreciate, especially since it's only 6 episodes. So yeah, so those are my thoughts on this episode. Let me know what you think. Do you have the same opinions of me in regard to Michonne's attitude towards Rick? What do you think is going on? Who knows what will happen next week? And yeah, I'll be back next week. So leave a message in the comments. We can have a discussion, and we'll be back next week when we will probably get some answers. All right, see you again on I See Melanie. Comment, like, and subscribe. And until next time, bye.